The pickup truck bounced its way along the gravel road under a clear Montana sky. Bob rolled down his window to get some air, letting his viewpoint escape and spin out above the fields. Golden fields of summer oats, ready for harvest, swayed in the breeze. Between them, the green shoots of the secondary harvest rose up through their ranks with the winter wheat. Thickets of sunflowers dotted the landscape, alongside clumps of sugar beets in leafy green patches, barley, and more. The traditional dryland farming of the area had turned wetter and warmer in past years, while much of the southernmost plains had returned to the dust bowl of more than 100 years earlier. Swarms of ornithopter beebots hovered between the swaying wheat and oats, while crawlers and mulebots scoured the ground. The robotic harvesting ecosystem was powered by both the sun and waste organic matter that the crawlers brought back to the hives where it was combusted for energy. The harvest was in full swing, but it wasn't really farming anymore. At least, not like it used to be. When Bob came outside, Deanna was kneeling, picking up a handful of earth and staring at the horizon. "I often wonder what my daddy would have thought of all this," she said. A generation ago, a strain of genetically modified crops, which grew sulfuric acid in their stems at the end of the seasonal cycle, had been experimented with to eliminate tillage. The trials were abandoned, but not before the gene jumped into the wild, burning away a swath of America before it was stopped. With traditional farming already on its last legs, a defense-sponsored program to root out the damage and replant the Great Plains with semi-wild perennial crops began, using robotic drones to tend and harvest the multi-crop. "Did your family own the place a long time?" Bob asked as they drove into town. Not everything was in the databases. "A few generations of farmers, but it's not like when I grew up here. Nobody left. Not the old ones, anyway." Perennials and robotics had saved the heartland, reducing emissions and erosion, but it had also eliminated the need for humans. Most of the center of America, away from the coasts, became deserted, with herds of reintroduced buffalo again roaming the skeletons of ghost towns strewn across the plains. Food production slid under control of the newly formed Defense Agricultural Division. The Great Plains had become a drone-infested wilderness, and DAD was now feeding the country. "So, were you and Vince... well, were you ever..." Bob struggled to find the right words. He'd been itching to ask since they got here, but he was trying to resist his constant urges to pry. Everything about coming out here, hiding, staying quiet, confined to one place and one small group of people, ran against the grain of Bob's character. Deanna laughed. "Yes, we were. A long, long time ago. I met him when my family sent me to MIT to study robotic harvesting, to try to keep up." She sighed. "And look where that got us." DAD had been created at the outbreak of the weather wars, when maintaining the food supply became a critical national security function. But it also had a darker purpose. The tens of millions of drones used in food production could be repurposed in the event of an attack, from inside or out. As their pickup truck rumbled its way along the gravel road into town, Sid was covering them, hacking into the sensor systems of the thousands of drones that were recording the truck's passage, erasing the image of Bob sitting next to Deanna. "When did you last see Vince?" She laughed. "Before 3 weeks ago, when you all arrived. I hadn't seen or heard from him in more than 30 years. "And you just took us in when he showed up on your doorstep?" Bob shook his head. He liked Vince, but the man had a way of taking people for granted that rubbed Bob the wrong way. Deanna turned to look at Bob. "Vince isn't so bad, you know. Sure, he can be conceited, loves to talk more than get things done." "Superior, controlling," Bob continued for her. "Someone's in a bad mood," laughed Deanna. "Yeah, all those things. And wouldn't you be if you were him?" She shook her head. "But you know, he's also incredibly clever, and no matter how shallow he can be sometimes..."